Hi there, this is Michael Mirdad. Good to see you guys again, figuratively of course. Time to connect with you with a couple of announcements and maybe just some feedback or insights on some things. I want you to remember, first of all, that there are a lot of things available online here and there. YouTube has some videos, and also some videos, meaning of teaching Sunday services, but also some of the things like you and I are doing here, sharing just some various topics. And then there's also what we call tirades. I think that's in its own little compartment on YouTube. Michael Mirdad, tirades on, and then whatever the topic. It's kind of an interesting thing, actually, the tirades, because I think that's one of the first things I've noticed that we did videos on, where folks like you just kind of went, oh, thank God, like somebody who's just saying something important. I mean, spiritual teachings, great, but it was like people were saying, finally somebody's saying talking about an important topic besides just teaching and spiritual, philosophy and so on. It's like they were relieved that somebody was finally saying, well, what about mundane topics, putting things in their place, tell people to stop messing around with this and stop BSing that and tell a more direct truth. So the tirades actually were very, very popular, and I say were not because I'm not doing them or that they once were and now they're not popular. Just that I did several of them to get the initial things off my chest that needed to be talked about, such as correcting incorrect New Age isms and aphorisms and axioms and so on. So, just straightened out a lot of things, and a lot of people really loved that. What's really amazing to me, it occurred to me earlier today, just kind of reflecting, that the tirades were something that we filmed that some people, a handful, it was the tirades that sent a handful of people away in little tantrums. Obviously they were probably the people that just felt, hey, if the shoe fits, and it happened to fit them, I guess, it was a little too true or too close to home, so they got a little frustrated. They, some of them used excuses like, you're a spiritual teacher, you shouldn't be so firm and whatever, and of course those are people that have issues with firmness. So they got their trips and they got to do their thing. But I think I like that, I really appreciate that you guys were willing to let me speak the truth instead of just pretending everything's, lollipops and unicorns, It's nice that we just say, hey, guys, some of this is BS. Some of the stuff that New Age people tell people are lies, That is to say, they're not true, So I just wanted to get some of that out there and really just get it across. Like if I died the next day after a handful of those tirades, I would be another spiritual teacher, but I would have been one of the only ones that also just put things where they belong so that people could hear the other side, meaning spirituality, but blunt spirituality. So I'm glad I did that. I'll probably do some other, some more here and there, but it feels like that's sort of complete to some degree for now. We'll see how that goes. And also, I'm always somewhat a little bit, you could say, blunt and direct when I teach anyway. It's just that those were taking off for 10 minutes of bluntness instead of 1 minute within a talk, okay? Now, you folks, whenever you have ideas or questions, you can send them in and we can do our best to talk about them. The one question I remember now just flashed into my head. One of you was asking a little bit about family and genetics. And so, just a brief comment on that, family and genetics. First of all, spiritually, remember to know the truth but respect the illusion. The truth is God, the Father and Mother God, are our parents. So you like your parents, you don't like your parents, doesn't matter. God is really your parent, so start identifying with that. If you want to just be mundane, then great. Then just identify with your human parents, whether they're adoptive, whether they're foster, whether they're biological, whatever it happens to be. Just get in there and stay with that. That's what monkeys do. But if you want to be an advanced spiritual being, you got to stop identifying with just mundane stuff. Think about God. God, I mean, what else could you want? God is my parent. which sounds arrogant. If you walked around, if you went to high school graduation and said, grabbed the microphone from the principal and said, ladies and gentlemen, my parents biological won't be here, but guess what? My real parents are, that is God. They'll think, oh my God, what do you think, you're Jesus or something? And you say, yeah, pretty much. Because the human parents can only go so far. And so if that's as far as you want to go, is your human genealogy, knock yourself out. I think that's great. That which is flesh is flesh. There you are. You're just, you're like a mineral then. You're sort of an animal nature then. You're dense like a mineral, and you just have primal instincts like an animal. You're genetically bound. But you have other options. As soon as you decide to say, wait a second, instead of being down here, just earthbound, down here, I think what I'm going to do is rise above this line, the veil between reality and illusion. I'm going to rise above being, a rock mentality or an animal instinct. I think I would like to have what's called free will, not compelled by something dense. Free will. And that means the first and greatest thing we can do with our free will is to simply generically say, God is my parent. From now on, God is my teacher, my healer, my parent. And I think it's, the greatest decision we can make, because in that we're choosing the absolute, the one and only thing, which is to switch from mundane thinking to spirit thinking. I'm not saying this is easy to completely wrap our minds around, because we can say, okay, that's it, God is my parent. Your genetics are not going to go and suddenly shift and you're a divine being, because all the programming and patterning within our mind has to catch up. That could take lifetimes, could just take seconds too, depending on how on board we are with that actual statement. How much do we really believe it? So I wouldn't sit around and try to measure how much you really believe it. I would just say from now on, it's my intention to say this, to know this, to believe this. God is my parent. That's why, in a way, some people in ancient cultures, as well as even the hippies of the 60s, started taking on new names. It's actually, its origins are in an ancient Jewish custom, which a lot of people, even Jews, don't really remember or use anymore. And that is, once in a while, the Jews were asked to change their name. So what they would do, it was symbolic, of course. What they would do is, instead of just the idea, I'm going to slay an animal on an altar, and that's my past is dying, so I can be reborn. The poor animals are like, what the hell did I do to you? Why don't you just kill that part of yourself? Well, that was too deep for the thinkers of the time, the human beings of the time. So now we're understanding we're supposed to be slaying our own ego nature. And so the people of the time, ancient peoples, they used to change their name. It was symbolic of saying, you know what? It's not the animal I'm going to sacrifice. What I'm going to do is, I am not the same person. Which is kind of like what I'm saying about the genetics. It's also what Christians refer to as being born again. So what does it mean to be born again? Oh, it means, going to a certain church, only a certain kind of church, and saying, I'm a sinner, I'm just so terrible, I want to be born again. And they say, well, accept Jesus as your Savior, and yes, I do. And that's not actually in the scriptures, by the way. So I don't know, why people make a major custom and ritual and a duty out of something that they just made up. So it sort of doesn't make sense. Jesus never said you have to do the following. He's talking about your soul being born again, not your words just simply saying, I accept Jesus as my Savior. The words are just ridiculous. There's a lot of people that said those words. The next weekend they were back at a bar getting wasted again, or using and abusing their children or other people again. So the words are stupid, really. I know some of you don't like me using those terms, but turn the channel. So go to somebody that only speaks for your ego and softly and appealing to your ego nature. I'm not like that. I'm just going to say, look, it's kind of stupid for us to play games like that. The bottom line, when your soul is born again, it is a soul choice, and you can never really even consider going back to the other habits. It's just because this is me. This is who I am. I being any one of us. Like, come on. It's not like, yeah, I was born again once. It doesn't work that way. It means it was never real. And yeah, it's sad that we fall off the spiritual wagon and so forth. But, you know, we need to do our best to recognize this is real for me. I can't go back. It's not even like, it's not a choice. It's not even an option. Not because I'm not given the free will for that option. It's not in my mind. It's just not there. So what happens is there comes a time in everybody's life when we realize there's a human me and a spiritual me, and they seem to be completely separated. But for me to ever know again, I went from being a spiritual me to a human me. That was told to us in Genesis. Genesis was not the creation of man like we think it is. Genesis was the story of the uncreation of man. It's the story of the creation of man, yes, but not really, because it's the story of our moving from being spiritual beings to human beings, which is really our uncreation, that we screwed ourselves up and thought, do the fall, you know, that we're separate from God. We fell from grace. Look at it another way. The word fall, we think it means sin. The word fall means I'm of a high consciousness and I'm now at a lower consciousness. So my fall is simply a shift from high consciousness to low consciousness, from everything to nothing. And we call that Genesis, as though it's a wonderful experience or creation. It's really an uncreation. The book of Revelation at the end of the Bible, the opposite end of that same book, is telling us about our revelation, which means once again, God that we lost is being revealed to us again. So imagine we fall, and then there's a point in our lives where we say, enough is enough. Just like in a 12-step program, I've had enough. But remember, enough does not mean I have to reach your version of bottom, some program's version of bottom. It means my life has to be completely obliterated and horrible. Remember, never forget this and tell other people that mistaking this. Bottom is whenever I decide enough is enough. I don't even have to fall on a 0 to 10 scale. If 10 is way up here, I can just fall to a 5 and say, that's it, and come back up. It's bottom for me. I know people who have fallen to a 0 and people a 2 and so on. We each have free will as to how far we fall, but we're all equal in that still we're in the variations of falling. It's still, we bought into the life of illusion and pain and suffering and karma and reincarnation and so on. So it doesn't really matter, I'm a 2 and you're a 5, and you know, you're not better than me if I'm a 2 and you're a 5. We still fell. But what's nice is I can at least say to myself, I'm very grateful that I did not need to go further into my pain to decide I don't need pain. So wherever that place is, we say stop. In that moment, we're born again. It's not real to say, I was a typical human being and then I ran into a couple of people from a fundamental faith and they just verbally beat me up with their religion and told me I better do this or else, you know, hell and whatever else, even if it's going to be horrible reincarnations in the future. That's called scared straight. That's not actually being born again, and it will not serve us. It just does not. Evidence of the scared straight programs have proven they're short-lived. Why? Because they're not real. So, you know, just think in terms of, I've fallen enough, wherever you are, in this moment, at the risk of sounding like one of those televangelists, I'm going to reach out to you right now so you can be born again and send me a donation to save your soul. So I won't do that. What I'll say is this. Really imagine, because it's true. In this moment, I'm choosing to voice the will of God, saying to you and to me, I'm in this too, man, to you and to me, my beautiful children, enough is enough. I would rather you say today is enough, but you have free will and you can wait another day, week, month, year, 10 lifetimes, whatever you like. But please allow enough to be enough. I don't want, God says, I don't want my children to suffer. It's never been my will. And it's very sad that you would choose such a thing. Let enough be enough. And then say to yourself, if enough is enough, then I can no longer really see myself as just a mere mortal. Nor can I see myself as simply the victim of my parental or family genetics. There's no predisposition to a disease or a disposition or of any kind. That's not true. It's not real in God. So I think what I'm going to do is feel all of that being washed out of me. And I'm going to commit to this. I'm actually the Christ child, a part of the Christ child. Christ is one in God. But we'll pretend that we're all little particles of that. Specks, sparkles, facets of that one Christ. That is who I am. That does not have genetics. In fact, it's impossible. Anything human cannot be found in the Christ. Because the Christ is the part of us that would not choose the limited human dimensionality or consciousness. It doesn't mean we're suddenly going to float when we move from place to place. It doesn't mean we no longer have to go to work, because we'll just wake up and each day a new pot of gold will be sitting in the living room. But it does mean that we understand that that's a possibility. That we don't have to work as hard for prosperity. We don't have to try so hard to amend for our past. We don't have to suffer for mistakes and negative karma, negative choices. We don't have to be part of the usual relationship stuff that goes on. All of a sudden, God, Christ, our highest good, starts to be our guide, that which steers us clearly. And we say, well, I understand that in the illusion, I'm still seemingly a human being. But what my mind knows is it's not true. What my heart knows is not true. I'll play the game, but I know it's not true. Keep that in mind, and when you hear or think that you're bound by, you're just like your sister, you're just try not to hear that stuff. Don't let that programming get you anymore. Just don't buy it. People always told me, you don't even look like your family, because I made the decision earlier on. I'm not my family. I just don't feel like I have anything to do with them. God bless them, let them do as they will and so on, but I just don't feel like them. So people would say, God, you just don't seem like your family's genetics. You don't look like them. You don't even act like them. So I've even had family members tell me that friends of theirs told them, that was your brother? He's nothing like any of you people. And of course they have no idea what a relief that is to hear, but in a good way. It's just funny, but that's how you and I can be. First of all, because we don't even need to hear that garbage. It's just silly human stuff. I'm not saying you have to hate your family. I'm saying that it's so silly. It's so mundane. And I think that if you're the type of parent that would tell your children, if your children said, oh, we hope that we're prosperous someday, and you say, oh, no, you can't be because I wasn't, so you can't be. Wouldn't that seem a little ridiculous? Then why would we will onto our children that they have our limitations? Well, you would say, what? Well, I wouldn't wish any limits of mine onto my children. Great. Then why would you will them onto yourself from your parents? Just be done. Just start to recognize my metabolism is mine, not theirs. My glandular system is mine, not theirs. Predispositions, what does that mean in Christ? And just start identifying. Except if you get a cold, you get a cold. You don't have to say, I got a cold, my mom used to get cold. Just get a cold and leave it alone. Let it be. That's what I'm experiencing right now. Stop identifying anything with your family. Whether it's their favorite color, your favorite color, where they live, where you live. Just stop identifying with it and be washed clean of all that. And of course, that's called emptying your cup. Afterwards, go to the next level. Start adopting a new life, your life, God's life. If you start acting as God would have you act, you'll have a new guide, a new genetic line, a lineage. Genes. But the genes are just a reflection of consciousness. When my consciousness thought that I identified with family karma and so forth, they were the right genes for me. Now, as soon as I go, well, their thought systems, their belief systems, their karmas are not mine. So the genes don't fit anymore. And people used to say, oh no, genetics, they're solid. They can't be changed. But just in the last few years, they're starting to teach they can be changed. I've said this for a long time, and I'm the last person that could be called a student of science. But I still knew this because God told me this. You are not bound by this. So learn to let this go and adopt God as your parent, the father and the mother, the nurturer, as well as the guide. God is my guide. And let that give you a new form of lineage, because your genetics, if we learn to surrender enough, our genetics start to shift and they start to become light genes, so to speak. The genes, the cells of the body start to become light. And at some point, even measurably so. Many of a yogi were able to experience and demonstrate things measurably to scientists that were supernatural, because their consciousness was not caught up in silly genetics and so forth. Lastly, even emotions, when we think, if I have family genetics, does that give me a predisposition towards depression, anxiety, bipolar, and so on? Yes, it does. As long as you identify with your humanness, that's what it does. By identify, I don't just mean you sit and obsess on it. By identify, though, watch for this one. If I still need my father to honor who I am, if I still need one day, I wish my mother would just hug me once. I wasn't breastfed and she didn't love me enough. As soon as I do that, I'm identifying again with them, because I still need something from them that I think I should have gotten from them when I was a child of theirs. It just keeps locking me in. I know it's not easy. And when you have tears about it, cry them. When you have rage, scream it into a pillow. Move the stuff, journal the stuff, process the stuff. But at some point, recognize each time you let chunks of that out, also, I'm empty for something new. So, time for God. Like I said, please honor those feelings. If you come to a workshop of mine, let's say that's related to healing, you would find me saying, let's talk about that stuff. And you might think, oh, I thought we were going to just get cosmic. No, you're not going to get cosmic if you're still actually stuck in the pain. So I would say, by all means, let's let the pain process. Then you'll find yourself feeling open and light. Then the light can come in. That's why I do workshops, my 5-day intensives. I do one related to healing and mastery, then one into Christ consciousness, like in the fall. 5-day intensive, we're starting to do PR for that now. If you're interested, join us. The 5-day intensive on awakening Christ consciousness. Fantastic stuff. Life-altering. But it's very spiritual compared to, say, a healing workshop where we work a little bit more on stuff, bringing stuff up to clear so that we can become masters, so that we become more associated with Christ consciousness. So that's why I do those progressions. So remember, genetics. Who are you and what do you identify with? Yes, family might have downloaded originally its predisposition for things. And some of those things might haunt you more than others in your life. But keep in mind, it haunting you just means it's a ghost. I just thought of that. I think I'm going to try to do a talk sometime on the relationship between ghosts and guests and various forms of phenomenon, phantoms and all these different kinds of things. We'll do something like that, obviously not just for the historic sense, but how those relate to our psychology. So remember, though, it's okay, because stuff comes up and it'll seem like it haunts you, but just remember it's just a ghost saying boo, which is today it's oh gee, my parents had this or that, my mother had breast cancer and her mother had, so I have it, oh gosh, here we go. Remember, even if it's true and it happens to you, don't overly talk it. If you have to say it, say it. If the doctor says, did your family say, don't say, you must not have seen Michael's talk on the videos online. There's no such thing as predisposition. You don't have to say that to your doctor. If it happens, it happens, and that's what you feel, then that's what you feel. But try not to go too far into buying into it. Try and recognize it's my predisposition. I don't have to call it my mom's, because technically what that is subtly excusing it on someone else again. This was my predisposition. This is my thing. And something is going to happen. Maybe it's your cross to bear this lifetime. Maybe there's going to be a little bit of depression. Even though you chant and tone and ring bells and gongs, do crystal healings and tuning forks on your chakras, and you eat all organic, you might still have depression. Is that bad? Why did it not heal you? I'm sure those things did all kinds of wonderful things for you. But if your soul says, we're going to use this as our finale out of this place, maybe that's it. We'll have this till we die. Maybe that's it. But you can bet your butt that your ego is hoping that it'll break you with that depression. Break you meaning you will not come to peace with having it. So what do you do when people say, how do you fight your ego? You learn to come to peace with anything it throws at you. That's what you do. Recognizing, this seems to be, but I'm still not going to let it destroy me. We all have moments of the days, bad days. I mean, I get frustrated sometimes, especially when just so many things are going weird, wild, and especially if a lot of people around me are going weird, wild. I find myself in a position of not being able to communicate or connect with the people around me. That's a little frustrating. Like if I go to a church and I'm supposed to be talking that day, but let's pretend for a second the staff is arguing with the minister's arguing with the board's arguing with the volunteers are arguing with me. It's a very tumultuous scenario, and so it is challenging. As soon as I can see it, I do my best as soon as I can see it to try to turn it around and not let it, just like the genetics or anything else in life, it's best for us to try not to let it control us. One way that works for me is to process it. Look at what's happening and even talk about it sometimes. As soon as I talk about it or think about it, meditate it, write it, some sort of process, it's not usually going to keep a grip on me so much. Because as soon as I start to process it in some form, it starts shifting. So don't let old patterns run on automatic pilot. Break them up by dismantling them. Talk about them, process them, share them, write them, whatever it happens to be, and let them move and shift in your mind, in your consciousness, and then it'll change manifestation in the external world and in your life. So my heart goes out to those of you who wonder about the predispositions and the stuckness and even the psychology of family. But you can practice not relying on that family. I'm not saying you call them and say, hey, thanks to this talk this guy Michael did, I'm done with you people. I'm over you, I'm not saying that. I'm saying in your consciousness you can start shifting the way you think of it and say to yourself, I'm going to stop waiting around for them. Now, if that's all you do, you've only sort of emptied your cup. If you don't refill your cup, that other's going to come back again, and then you're going to have to keep doing it. Say instead, I'm not going to keep waiting for a hug from my mom or dad or their approval of my brothers and sisters and whatever it is. See that, own that, and give that up. But then, bring in something new. What I am accepting is God's view of me, which is that I am beautiful. I am a light of God. I am perfect as God created me to be. I am the light of God in the earth. I am the light of God to God's children. I'm here to do my best to be of service. I'm a spiritual being, so I can have spiritual relationship. So the affirmations and decrees can step in now because you've emptied, made some room, so you bring in something new. That then becomes, like I said, your new lineage. What is your lineage? People say, what race are you? Do you know that people like, if you've heard of John of God, or if you've heard of Peace Pilgrim, Yogananda, certain people like this, do you know that those people never really sat around and identified with family members that much? They often, many of these mystics, never bothered. Peace Pilgrim was a woman living, and doing some amazing work through 70s, 80s, 90s. But these people often didn't identify with their birth date. If you asked them for their birth date, they were like, how is that relevant? I'm just here to do God's work. Yeah, but when were you born? It doesn't matter. And I'm kind of the same way. Before I even knew that these folks were like that, I just kind of felt that way naturally. I don't feel like I'm this sign or that sign. I don't feel like I just don't feel genetically predisposed, but I also feel not stuck by a particular sign. Astrology is very valid in this world. But I feel like our growth goes from being the lower aspect, everybody's born into the lower aspect of a sign, with the intention, the possibility of evolving to the higher aspect of a sign, because every sign has a lower and higher aspect. So we evolve to a higher aspect. Then what happens is It is our duty, it's our spiritual destiny to become the higher aspect of all the signs. So if I'm choosing to do that and be the higher aspect of all the signs, and you want to know what sign I am, how do I answer that? When you want to know what race is your family, I mean no offense. I just, what does it matter? I can tell you this as I'm coming to a close. On a negative side, poor humans, humans are just so messed up in so many ways. It's silly stuff. But humans, what they'll do, and try to get what I'm saying here, humans will say to me, what sign are you? And I can tell them anything, I can say cup and saucer, whatever it is. That's my sign of my zodiac. They'll go, oh, I knew it. You seem very much like a cup and saucer. If I say, nope, spoon and fork. Oh, yeah, I can see it. People's heads want a box to put people in, things in. Why? You think that's the God in them? No, of course not. It's the fearful human aspect of them that puts people in a box. So when they say to me, how come you've eaten junk food all your life and you're not 350 pounds? If I answer and say, well, I'm an 834 in my numerology chart. I'm a saucer and spoon and cup in my astrology. They always go, oh yeah, those signs. Yeah, they say that's the best metabolism sign. Oh my God, what's your blood type? It's always something that they want to, oh, that's why. Why can't people just accept that sometimes we can be spiritual enough that generally our health is taken care of? Generally, our mind is taken care of. Generally, how'd you write books, Michael? You must have gone to school and this. No. I never took an English class, ever since the time I can remember, since middle school. No, there's no literary anything in my background. Oh, I bet your parents were. No, completely dim. No IQ, my parents, no offense. I'm saying there's nothing there. I've had people say to me, sometimes music can come to me. I have no musical background. People say, oh, your parents must have been very musical. Your dad probably was a good singer. No. Trust me on that. Nothing there. It's me. My soul choosing God as my parent. I'm not bragging. I'm saying this is what I've learned that can come from our humble choice. To not buy into everything being told to us, being programmed into us by humans. You can then say, okay, if it wasn't your family, it must have been something else. You must have good genetics. Really? Why? Why can't it be God, I wonder? And then people say, oh, you must have really good karma, past lives. All I know is anything I am today, anything you are today, is only based on our choices, which is where I began today. It's all based on our choices. My family genetics could have been fantastic, and I could have been an absolute ass and decided to be a mass murderer jerk. And there are people who have had the worst, lowliest of lives, households, and whatever, and made sublime choices. Yogananda came from a third world country, okay? And I've known mystics that had opulence and walked away from it. So this is about free will, guys, and let's just call it for what it is. We'll call this talk, maybe, I don't know, something like that, genetics and free will. But think about it. I mean, wouldn't you like to think that you get to choose? Wouldn't you like to think that your free will can change hell to heaven? It is the free will that does that. But even here, not just one day, but even here and now. So when you eat foods and you go, gosh, I shouldn't be eating this, then you probably shouldn't be, because you've already cursed it. Be free. Be immune to all things, because there's peace and love. I would love to think that I've made absolute perfect choices in everything I've ever done. There's no such thing, because you're always juggling a little bit between this and that, trying to figure which thing is righteous, and sometimes you make the decision and then you learn, oh, this one's probably better, and shift. Free will has to do with micro adjustments sometimes. But free will also means not only my family genetics, my own karma. I feel free. I being any of us, I feel free. I feel free of my past. And if you want to be free from your past, don't say, I had 2 lifetimes in the past. One was Hitler and one was Mary Magdalene. I'm going to let go of the Hitler one, but not the Mary Magdalene. That doesn't work. You can't say you're free and then pick and choose. The freedom comes from an absolute unconditional freedom. So that means, and you know, when I know, because I know my lifetimes in the past, and I can laugh at all of them, and I can also be amazed at things I've done and where I've been. But whenever I think about wonderful things of my past lives, if I can't figure out how to make it something today, valuable today, I don't even care. Somebody can say, let's pretend I was... I gotta be careful to steer very clear of any of the real things. Let's see, I was... sorry guys, I gotta... I'm looking around my room and I'm trying to, don't look at that one. There's little signs here and there, you know, in every symbol. So let's say that I was St. Peter, because I wasn't. And if some of you think I was, I'm sorry to let you down. So St. Peter. So people, and I've had people say, oh, you know, I think you were St. Peter. Okay, great. Let's say I was. What I want to know is if St. Peter had a tendency to be afraid, so afraid to own his spirituality and his master, the Christ, within himself as well as in Jesus, I would want to watch now. I wouldn't just go, you know, I'm the one that they say started the Christian church. I wonder if I could just fly over to Rome, then get into the Vatican and say, I have evidence from my own Akashic record reading that I was St. Peter, so I'll just be coming home now. They're not going to respect it. So what do I need to do with it? I need to say if he had weaknesses of owning the truth and he was afraid and he let it scare him and deny Jesus, I better look at that and watch. If I do that in this lifetime, I want to see that that's not me anymore. If he was so gutsy that he could do what they're saying, you know, founding the church, meaning simply that could I be the type to trailblaze and lead the way? Yeah, then I should go, wow, that's great. I'm going to access some more of that inner St. Peter. That's all I'm saying. So the genetics are this and karma and all these things are part of the same talk here today. And I'm saying we can't let go of one thing and not another. It's okay to start with that, but recognize when you say you're going to let go of all the things in your life that have controlled you, it really means my intention is to let go of all of them equally unconditionally. I really can't pick and choose. I can sort of think I can or feel like I can and even try to a little bit. That's a good start. But really, inside, nothing. Nothing left. Nothing. I'm ready to empty myself. Holy Spirit, take all of me. Well, except that. Take all of me. Well, except I love my children. Take all of me. Oh, there are some good past lives. You can't do that and pick and choose. All of me. All of me. I surrender all of me. And I'm ready to live my soul's purpose. And believe it or not, God will find a way to take even the worst bizarre things we've done and the best sublime things we've done and mix them just right into today's necessities for us. Part of our soul's purpose. It still doesn't define who we are. It's just being used today like a shirt and pants. A little of this, a little of that, that'll be your outfit today, and you take it with you. And sometimes the past of a drug addiction, for example, could be part of the wardrobe today to talk to some people that are addicts. And I need to be able to speak their language. So I put on a little of my old addict self. And believe it or not, we get to the point where we don't even rely on that. And we can put on anything, even if we've never worn it. Meaning, you channel it. You can channel even a history you don't have. Humans can't do that. But spirits can. So all of a sudden I can channel my inner you if I wanted to, because we're one anyway. All of a sudden I can channel the light and an artist and a poet and anything, even though I think I'm not those things. Just because I don't say, well, I haven't been that, so that won't work. Then you've stuck yourself with less tools on your tool belt. And spirit can't even use them if you don't believe that they're there. So we have to say, I'm open, and then Spirit goes, yes, that's what I've been wanting. All right? I pray this has made good sense. I'm always grateful that you guys spend time with me here. And, pay attention to the things that I don't know that much about, Facebook and all that, how to share this if you like. And remember, we have this talk on Fridays. And we have a Friends of Michael Mirdad Facebook page that's, available to folks that might be interested in joining. It's a group of us to just connect and we share feedback and insights with one another. It's quite beautiful. Everybody from poets to artists to just spiritual beings to lay people, common folks, just new at this, sharing still personal and deep insights. If that rings a bell, great. We're certainly not looking just to raise the number of people on the page. If you feel a calling, then by all means join us. If you're watching this and you just like to join Facebook page groups and stuff like that, Facebook groups and all that, it's not our interest. So, you never mind on that. But if you feel called, by all means, join us. Try to join us on Sundays. If you're ever feeling the generosity to help donate towards these projects that we're doing, all the live work, we'd appreciate it. And it's shared with all the people that are helping to film and share it and all that here and there as often as we can, particularly the people doing the administrative parts. There's a lot to that. A lot of work goes into getting us connected to Facebook and websites and all that really deeply administrative stuff. So we appreciate your support in that, and you just do what you can. But lots of love to you. Take this message as deeply as you can into your own heart and get some of your own insights and journal. Don't just quote me or think me. Get your own insight so that it applies into your life as best you can, and it can. Blessings to you all. See you. Peace be with you.